Acts 8:26. Now an angel of the Lord said to Philip, "Rise and go toward the south to the road that goes down from Jerusalem to Gaza. This is a desert place." And Philip arose and went. And there was an Ethiopian, a eunuch, a court official of Candace, queen of the Ethiopians, who was in charge of all her treasure. He had come to Jerusalem to worship and was returning, seated in his chariot, and he was reading the prophet Isaiah. This court official would certainly qualify as that elite class that Paul was referring to in verse 14. He's reading from the scroll of Isaiah, so he's obviously educated because most of the world could not read at that time. He's a court official to the queen, so he holds a prominent position of authority. And being over the queen's treasure, he has incalculable wealth under his care. And so from a human's perspective, this man would have been seen as a success. If anyone's bearing fruit in their life, it's someone like this Ethiopian eunuch. But despite all appearances, this Ethiopian eunuch is hindered, prevented, cut off from the people of God. Indeed, cut off from the very vine itself. How? Well, first, he's a foreigner. While the law made provisions for foreigners to join the people of God, more often than not, the Gentiles were excluded. Paul's letter to the Ephesians expresses this Ethiopian's predicament. Remember that at one time, you Gentiles, that's those who are not Jews, were separated from Christ, alienated from the commonwealth of Israel, strangers to the covenants and promises, having no hope and without God in the world. He is foreign to the covenants and promises of God. The second thing that has this man severed from God's people is he's a eunuch. Now, the simplest way I know how to express what a eunuch is to my kids is he is a man who has been made safe to be around the queen. Where the law made provisions for foreigners to join themselves to the people of God, the law specifically forbade any deformed or emasculated male from entering the assembly of the Lord. That's Deuteronomy 23:1. Part of the issue with being a eunuch is that it made it impossible to fulfill the very first command in all of Scripture. Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth. This man is anything but fruitful. He'll never multiply. He'll never have a child of his own, no heir to pass things on to. He is like a dry tree, barren, just like the desert road he is on between Jerusalem and Gaza. What harvest could possibly come from him? The third thing that has this Ethiopian eunuch separated from God's people is that he is ignorant of the promises of God. He holds the scroll of Isaiah, the prophet, in his hand. And he can read it, but he can't understand it. He needs someone to help him. Like Jesus' parable, someone will need to explain it to him. Look at it, Acts 8:31. The Spirit has Philip join the chariot. So Philip ran to him and heard him reading Isaiah. And Philip asked, "Do you understand what you are reading?" And he said, "How can I unless someone guides me?" I hope you hear the humility in his voice. I need help. This powerful man riding in the back of the queen's chariot says, "I need help from this guy who doesn't even have his own ride." And he invites Philip to come and sit with him. Loved ones, that's the first step to be able to receive this good news that Jesus has for us. That Philip is about to share with this man. This good news that takes a dry tree and makes it fruitful. See, out of all the passages in Scripture he could have been reading, this Ethiopian eunuch is reading from these verses from Isaiah 53. Like a sheep, he was led to the slaughter. And like a lamb before its shearers is silent, so he opens not his mouth. In his humiliation, justice was denied him. Who can describe his generation? For his life was taken away from the earth. And the eunuch asked Philip, about whom is the prophet writing? Is he writing about himself or about someone else? Because one thing for sure, whoever this passage is referring to, the Ethiopian eunuch can relate. You see, Jesus had something to say regarding eunuchs in Matthew 19. He says there are eunuchs who have been so from birth, and there are eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by men, and there are eunuchs who have made themselves eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. It is likely this Ethiopian eunuch, this Ethiopian was made a eunuch at the hands of men, led like a sheep to the slaughter to be sheared. Who was he to cry out to? So he opens not his mouth. In his humiliation, can you imagine such humiliation? Have you known such humiliation? And he was denied justice. Literally, justice was lifted from him or removed from him. Who can describe his generation? His family? His future heirs? There would be none. No son or daughter. His life was lifted from the earth. It's beginning with this passage of Scripture that Philip tells the eunuch the good news regarding Jesus. This passage, as much as the eunuch could relate to it, it's not about him or about the prophet who penned it, but it's about Jesus. Jesus was the sheep led to the slaughter. Jesus was the lamb who was silent before the shearers, who resolved not to open his mouth even though he was falsely accused and sentenced. Jesus was humiliated. Think of it. God of the universe, spit upon and mocked, beaten, stripped bare and exposed and nailed to a cross for all to gawk at. And Jesus was denied justice. Pilate, the governor, repeatedly announced Jesus' innocence. I find no guilt in him. But yet, out of fear of the crowds, he sent Jesus to the cross anyway. The man, Jesus, would never have a biological child of his own. Because on that cross, his life was lifted from the earth. It was removed. He died without a single error. Jesus knows the eunuch's pain and suffering and oppression and every injustice that was ever done to him. And he knows yours too. And that's important to know if you are ever to produce the sort of harvest that is called for in this gospel. The same kind of harvest that Paul's looking to harvest in Rome. It didn't matter in the least how much power this Ethiopian official may have had, second only to the queen, incalculable wealth under his charge among the academic elites, apart from knowing the one who denied himself of his infinite power, authority, and wealth. An utterly ignorant and foolish act in the eyes of the world in order to die in this man's place. The Ethiopian eunuch was hopeless. Why? Because the greatest hindrance, the greatest prevention that had him severed from God's people is the same thing that has any of us severed from God's people. It's sin. Sin is not merely our greatest barrier, it is the barrier. Sin makes us foreign to God's design for our lives. Sin makes us barren and fruitless. Sin distorts our knowledge of God and places us on a desert road far from Him. But Jesus removes the barrier of sin and brokenness it causes by becoming broken in our place. And so like the eunuch, Jesus also came to Jerusalem to worship. Jesus came to worship by making himself a eunuch, by having his whole life cut off and lifted from the earth. in order to remove the barrier of sin that hinders us from God. But you know how the account of this eunuch ends. Verse 36, along the road, they came to some water, and the eunuch said, see, here's water. What prevents me from being baptized? That's our word, prevent. That word prevent is the same in our text in Romans 1:13. Its root means with a part lopped off. At one point, this eunuch was lopped off from the people of God, but no longer. With a little water found along the desert road, this once barren man will now produce fruit to God's glory. Isn't the whole picture of baptism? I don't know if we ever really mind the depths of this picture of baptism, what it represents. It's so perfect for capturing this. You see, when one says baptism represents death, and a seed must fall to the ground and die, or it remains alone, Jesus says. It won't produce anything. But also, the seed needs to be watered. Seeds have been planted in Rome, and Paul yearns to come and water them. This seed of the eunuch on the road between Jerusalem and Gaza, he needs the living water. So as Josiah read from Isaiah 56, let not the foreigner who has joined himself to the Lord say, the Lord will surely separate me from his people. And let not the eunuch say, behold, I am a dry tree. For to those who hold fast my covenant, I will give them a monument and a name better than sons and daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. You see, Jesus is the vine that was pruned, that was lopped off in our place, in order that we never need to be separated from God and his people. Whether Ethiopia or Rome, the harvest of the nations has begun. And so all that, this is great, Josh, but what does this passage, what does the Ethiopian eunuch have to do with Romans here? Well, let's see if I can tie this together for us. Both deal with a temporary hindrance that God himself has ordained, sovereignly ordained, in order that the harvest would be all the more glorious when it came. Whether Paul's delay in getting to Rome and beyond Rome, or the Ethiopian foreigner who had been so long prevented all of his life from being a part of God's people. And then both express our obligation as debtors to Christ to share the gospel with all, regardless of their social status, regardless of how they look like they may be faring in life, whether they seem wise or maybe they seem too simple. It doesn't matter. The gospel's for all. Outside of Christ, everyone is barren. Don't be fooled by those outward appearances. There's not a soul on earth that is not in desperate need of the living water of Jesus Christ, in order that they might produce a life, a fruitful life to the glory of God. They need that water that flowed from Jesus' pierced side, that watered the thirsty, barren ground. You see, Paul was hindered from coming to Rome due to fruitful ministry elsewhere. This Ethiopian eunuch was hindered from the people of God for a time that he might become a part of someone else's fruitful ministry. But in both cases, the grand gardener's timing is perfect for sowing and reaping, watering the once barren land to produce a harvest that redounds to God's glory. And I think this is fitting for us today as I think about it. Don't be discouraged by the hindrances you and I face along the road seeking this fruit, this harvest. The master gardener knows what he's doing. And he is pruning where he will in order to produce the greatest harvest. We can't see it and understand it now. But we can see these portraits and we can trust him that he knows just what he is doing.